Hi, my name is Eric. I'll be reading you The Anchor from the Diocese of Fall River for Friday, September 5th. It's the September edition of The Anchor. The headline on the cover, Consecrated to St. John Vianney, Diocesan Priests are Called to Holiness Together, by Matthew S. Robinson, Director of Clergy Support. In Fall River, on August 4th of 2025, our priests did something which captured the attention of the country. They consecrated themselves, their lives, and their ministries to St. John Vianney, the patron saint of priests. This occurred within the broader context of our 3-year 2025 to 2028 diocesan Stronger Priests, Stronger Parishes, Stronger Church initiative, and coincided with the 100th anniversary of the canonization of that great saint, the Curé of Ars, whom the Church gives to us as a model of priestly holiness and parish ministry. It also came after 9 days of spiritual preparation in which our priests prayerfully reflected each day upon some aspect of St. John Vianney's life and priestly example. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the prayerful support of so many across the diocese. St. John Henry Newman said that a grace remembered is a grace renewed. So, what were some of the graces of that day? One of the remarkable graces was the prayerful support that we received from Bishop Pascal Roland of Belliars, France. He's the current bishop of Ars, the place where St. John Vianney lived and labored. Bishop Roland actually wrote a letter to our priests, offering his prayers, encouragement, and support of this incredible consecration. This letter was read to the priests at the end of the consecration by Bishop d'Acunha. In that letter, he asked our priests to never forget what St. John Paul II once said. The Curé of Ars remains for all countries an exceptional model, both in fulfilling the ministry and in the holiness of the minister. In other words, we shouldn't see St. John Vianney only as a model of holiness of life, but also as a model of parish ministry and evangelization. St. John Vianney transformed a parish from 200 parishioners to 80,000. In an era rightly marked by calls to evangelization, should we not intimately understand what his pastoral methods were that led to such a remarkable turnaround? Perhaps that's why Pope Benedict XVI, in a 2009 letter to priests, said, "Dear brother priests, let us ask the Lord Jesus for the grace to learn for ourselves something of the pastoral plan of St. John Mary Vianney." In that same letter from Bishop Pascal, he writes that he prays for our priests to imitate St. John Vianney as their elder brother. What was so remarkable about this line is that the reflection given by Providence Bishop Bruce Lewandowski at the consecration was about St. John Vianney as an elder brother. This remarkable connection was an extraordinary grace given by our Lord, reminding us that He has anointed this moment. Another grace occurred at the Mass celebrated in Ars itself on August 4th, the morning of our consecration. At the Mass in the Basilica close to the incorrupt body of the saint, the bishop, speaking in French, asked the congregation to pray for the priests of the Diocese of Fall River, Massachusetts, USA. Another beautiful moment of grace, knowing that our priests and diocese were interceding for so very close to the saint himself. As mentioned earlier, this consecration garnered national attention, including 2 articles in the National Catholic Register and an EWTN radio interview with Bishop d'Acunha. It seems this topic and our Stronger Priests initiative have struck a nerve for many throughout our country and even beyond. What a tremendous grace it is for our diocese to shine a spotlight on the need to strengthen our priests in holiness and support. Speaking of holiness, what does this priestly consecration mean for those who aren't ordained priests in our diocese? Well, it means that we must double our own efforts to grow in personal holiness. This is the overarching lesson of St. John Vianney and the example that our priests set for us through this consecration. Ultimately, this is what supporting our priests really looks like. growing in personal holiness. That's what our priests desire for us and ultimately gave their lives for. But let's drill down for a moment on that notion of holiness, especially in light of St. Jean Vianney and the priesthood. Did you know that each one of us is called to live a priestly life? Have you ever thought of your baptismal vocation in priestly terms? Yes, this is called the common priesthood. Common because all baptized Christians share it, and because it differs in essence from the ministerial priesthood, that of ordained priests. Remember that Revelation 1:6 says Christ made us a kingdom, priests to his God and Father. Being a priestly people means that each one of us is called to offer spiritual sacrifice, proclaim the gospel, sanctify the world, and offer prayers of intercession. Let's look at some examples concretely through the lens of St. Jean Vianney and translate them for us. The curé's first prayer when he arrived in Ars was, "My God, grant me the conversion of my parish. I'm willing to suffer all my life, whatever it may please you to lay upon me. Yes, even for 100 years I'm prepared to endure the sharpest pains. Only let my people be converted." In my common priesthood, am I able to genuinely pray, "My God, grant me the conversion of my family. I'm willing to suffer all my life. I'm prepared to endure the sharpest pains. Only let my family be converted." It's well known that the curé was in the confessional for up to 16 hours a day. He would give the gravest sinners the lightest penance, doing their harsh penance himself. In my common priesthood, have I truly forgiven those who have offended me most? Can I do some form of penance for their salvation? And when was the last time I went to confession? When tempted to lust, the curé would remain chaste, offering it up so that his people could be chaste. In my common priesthood, when I'm tempted to lust, am I able to remain pure as an act of love for my family and friends so that they have the grace to be pure? The curé gave away everything he owned in imitation of Christ's poverty. He used his entire inheritance to build an orphanage for girls. He would often say, "My secret is simple. Give everything away and hold nothing back." Sometimes when beggars would knock, he would say, "Today I am poor just like you. I'm one of you." In my common priesthood, am I able to be detached from my possessions so that I can allow God to use them as he desires? One time, a petition started by corrupt priests began circulating to remove the curé from the parish. When he saw the petition, he signed it, saying that he wasn't worthy to hold his office. In my common priesthood, can I respond to insults with humility, seeing them as an opportunity to carry my cross? So, let's support our priests. Let's support them by living out our common priesthood with virtue, just as they've been called to live out their ordained priesthood. Let's support them by growing in holiness. Let's support them by volunteering in the parish. Let's support them by evangelizing and bringing people to Mass with us, because our parishes will only be full if we make them full. The curé of Ars is a saint for all of us because the renewal of the church will come by faithfully living the priesthood, both ordained and common. Ultimately, that's what the Stronger Priests, Stronger Parishes, Stronger Church initiative is all about. In the coming year and beyond, a first-class relic of St. Jean Vianney will be making a pilgrimage to each parish in the diocese. May we join together in asking him to intercede for us, opening the floodgates of grace upon our diocese and helping us live priestly lives. Bishop issues statement on the Minneapolis shooting. Bishop Edgar M. DeCunha issued the following statement Wednesday, August 27th, in response to the shooting earlier that day in a Catholic church in Minneapolis as children from the parish school were attending Mass. In the wake of the heartbreaking violence at Annunciation Catholic Church today in Minneapolis, our hearts are heavy with sorrow. We rightly expect that a church should be a place of sanctuary and peace. What should have been a joyful celebration for Catholic school students to begin a new school year has become the latest tragedy that we now struggle to comprehend. Together with Catholics across the Diocese of Fall River, I mourn the innocent lives lost, and I pray for healing for all of those affected: students, families, educators, and the entire community. Following the incident, I sent an email to all our parishes, reminding them of the importance of being proactive in ensuring the safety of parishioners and, with schools, their students, faculty, and families. I shared that while faith is our foundation, preparedness is a form of stewardship. To help them prepare, the communications included parish safety and security guidance that was provided to us by our insurance company. May God bring comfort to those grieving, strength to those recovering, and peace to a community shaken by violence. Let us pray for the safety of all children and school faculty and staff around the country. Diocese Thrust into National Spotlight with Priest Initiative by Joan D. Warren, editor. The Diocese of Fall River recently gained national attention following a significant event aimed at renewing and strengthening the priesthood. On August 4th, the feast of St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests, more than 70 priests and 5 seminarians gathered at St. John Newman Church in East Freetown to consecrate themselves to the saint. This momentous occasion, rooted in prayer and fraternity, has been highlighted in a story and an editorial that was published by the National Catholic Register. St. John Vianney Priestly Consecration, Fall River, and Fall River Diocese launches Priestly Renewal Initiative, and featured in a special interview with Bishop Edgar M. DeCunha on EWTN's Register Radio. Bishop DeCunha's interview sheds light on the spiritual and pastoral urgency behind this consecration, which is part of the diocese's ongoing Stronger Priests, Stronger Parishes, Stronger Church initiative launched in late 2024. The consecration drew further significance with that participation of Bishop Bruce Lewandowski of the Diocese of Providence, who delivered a homily during the service. His presence underscored the spirit of collaboration among neighboring dioceses in addressing the challenges faced by priests today. This national attention comes at a critical time, as many dioceses confront the realities of overworked clergy, diminished support systems, and the need for renewed priestly holiness. The public and prayerful recommitment to the priesthood by the Fall River Diocesan Presbyterate has reasoned widely, offering a model of spiritual renewal that others across the country are observing closely. Locally, the event inspired faithful parishioners to unite in prayer and support, sending hundreds of messages of encouragement to their priests. While the national spotlight affirms the diocese's efforts, Bishop DeCunha continues to focus on fostering a deeper, sustained renewal within the local church, emphasizing that a stronger church begins with stronger priests. Our holy priests are men, not machines, and they need our help. The editorial below, reprinted in full, appeared online at ncregister.com August 13th of this year. It appears with permission from the National Catholic Register. What our clergy need most is support, both from each other but equally from the lay Catholics who benefit so greatly from the sacrifices of our pastors. These are very real challenging times for America's parish priests. Declining numbers of experienced priests, a shortage of new vocations to replace them as they retire, the forced consolidation of parishes in many dioceses due to diminished church attendance, heavy administrative responsibilities, and isolating living conditions are among the serious hardships our priests experience on a continual basis. These issues are compounded by the diminished public esteem for the priestly vocation that is an inescapable consequence of the sexual abuse scandals of recent decades. But this situation shouldn't be regarded by Catholics as a cause for alarm or despair. Instead, it's a call to action. Most of today's priests are good and holy men who strive faithfully to serve Jesus and his bride, the Church, as sacramental ministers. And what our clergy need most is support, both from each other, but equally from the lay Catholics who benefit so greatly from the sacrifices our pastors accept cheerfully as a necessary aspect of their priestly lives. A recent example of this kind of support took place in the Diocese of Fall River, Massachusetts, via a special consecration to St. John Vianney that Bishop Edgar M. DeCunha organized for his priests and seminarians on August 4th, the saint's feast day. The Curé d'Ars, as the famed 19th century French priest is known, is both the earthly model and the heavenly patron for parish priests. Like his clerical brethren of today, Father Vianney was no stranger to hardship. As Matthew MacDonald's Register article about the event notes, he overcame poverty, persecution, conscription, opposition from his father, and learning difficulties to become a priest, only to be sent to a remote village in southeastern France where most people didn't know much about the faith and didn't much care about it either. The saintly priest overcame all these obstacles and became a renowned pastor, whose witness of faith resulted over time in a church that was packed every Sunday, and whose exceptional gifts as a confessor drew penitents from all over France. A casual observer might be inclined to believe that he must have employed unusual techniques to accomplish this, but nothing could be further from the truth. St. John Vianney relied on the same instruments that have always centered successful pastors of parishes: prayer, fasting, preaching the gospel, and living out their priestly identity by accompanying their entire flock through all the joys and travails that are part and parcel of every human life. But like everybody else, our priests also need the support of other people. They're men, not machines. That's why a communal consecration like the one in Fall River, organized on their behalf by their diocesan spiritual father, Bishop DeCunha, can provide so much support and solace in terms of reinvigorating the pastors so that they can continue to carry out their crucial mission of the salvation of souls at this undeniably challenging moment. Of course, Fall River is not the only diocese that's taking steps to assist its beleaguered priests. An array of related efforts is underway across the nation, including the Companions of Christ Association of Diocesan Clergy that was founded in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis. The lay faithful also have a crucial role in terms of assisting our overstretched pastors. The greatest service pastors deliver to their parishes is through their sacramental ministry. While the laity can share in this burden to some degree, through serving in various capacities at Mass, including as lectors and ushers, where they can really make a difference in terms of lightening the pastoral load is by stepping forward as volunteers whenever possible. One final point. Despite the challenges that are necessarily involved with the parish priesthood, it's not at all the case that it is painful and unsatisfying. Instead, just as with the vocation to marriage and family life, it's a joyful calling that generates a host of fulfilling experiences. But along with the joy, there's definitely difficulties. So, let's do whatever we can to support the holy priests who do so much for all of us. A gift, but with an expiration date. Diagnosed in 1995 with the most aggressive form of brain cancer known as glioblastoma multiforme, and given only a few months' life expectancy, Dr. Ben Williams, a professor of psychology at the University of California, San Diego, summed up his experience this way. When I was diagnosed with brain cancer, I knew almost nothing about the disease other than it was one of the worst medical diagnoses you can get. I hadn't even heard of glioblastoma at that point. I was told it was the worst kind of tumor you could have and that nobody survived it. For the first several months, most of my thinking was, I'm going to die. How am I going to deal with it? I thought a lot about death. When you receive a diagnosis that everyone tells you is terminal, and no one survives it, it's impossible not to become depressed by that information. I look at pictures from that period of time, and clearly I was depressed. It wasn't until I began doing research that said there was a possibility that there are things that you can do that would be helpful that I began to think, well, this is worth at least making the fight. The bewildering experience of receiving an adverse diagnosis reminds us how personal our physical health is. In a certain sense, nothing could be more intimate or immediate. As we age, start to feel poorly, and especially when we struggle with serious or life-threatening illnesses, it can seem that our bodily health is the highest good there is, the summum bonum, almost an absolute good. Declining health can trigger feelings of sadness and depression as we sense our life slipping through our fingers, and it sometimes can lead to dark temptations like physician-assisted suicide or euthanasia. We may fall prey to oft-repeated cultural cliches, such as, "I'm free to do what I want with my life and health," or even, "My life is no longer worth living." Life and health are clearly very important goods. They are instrumental goods, enabling us to pursue and partake of other important goods, like interpersonal and familial relationships, employment, recreation, etc. Health and well-being are also goals worthy of energetic pursuit to the extent that we have some control over a limited set of variables like exercise and nutrition that affect our health. While it's good to take steps to improve our health, we're not entitled to good health, nor is it a right that we can lay claim to. We have not originally conferred the state of life or health upon ourselves, but we have received it gratuitously from the giver of all gifts, a gift with an earthly expiration date. Our health and well-being, marked by fragility, are transient and contingent and therefore not absolute goods. Health challenges, of course, are part of almost every person's life journey. We may struggle not only with physical maladies, but also with mental limitations like ADHD, obsessive-compulsive disorders, depression, or any number of other agonizing mental conditions that constrict our well-being and livelihood. As we age and face an expanding list of ailments and infirmities, new opportunities for growth and transformation arise. Contending with weakness and sickness, for example, draws us into connection with other people, as we come to depend on them for assistance. When we face a worsening health situation, we should earnestly pursue several goals. First, to take responsible steps to restore our health, including doctor visits, medications, surgeries, or other reasonable interventions. Second, to seek to reflect more deeply and in spiritual terms on the meaning of our health burdens. And third, to work to accept our situation without fear, desperation, or irresponsible actions like physician-assisted suicide or euthanasia. Coming to accept our situation with all its ups and downs helps us begin preparing for our earthly end, death itself, prompting us to take up core questions about life's meaning, the survival of the soul, life after death, and even the resurrection of the body. The afflictions we struggle against can lead us actively to surrender and accept where we are, even as we turn to the One who sees all things and knows the specifics of our situation better than we do. When our lives are marked by good health, vigor, and strength, we may hesitate to engage these kinds of core questions in any meaningful way. We tend to look past important transcendental priorities and focus on immediate temporal matters. Health, then, is an instrumental good, but so is sickness. Both can serve to point us towards higher, more spiritual goods. At some point, we may even be able to see our ailments as a blessing and a gift from the One who better sees the big picture of our life's journey. Reverend Tadeusz Pacholczyk, Ph.D., wrote this and earned his doctorate in neuroscience from Yale, doing postdoctoral work at Harvard. He's a priest of the Diocese of Fall River and serves as senior ethicist at the National Catholic Bioethics Center in Philadelphia. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of The Anchor, the September edition. This is your reader, Eric, saying, be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.